In this video I'm going to be going through quite a few of the movies my wife and I have been enjoying recently on the home video in our home cinema, and the one I'm going to start with is Henri-Georges Clouzot's The Wages of Fear. Now, I saw this at the cinema, not when it was first released, but at the NFT about 20 years ago when they had a retrospective screening of this. My neighbour at the time, David Harris, had said, "If you like French cinema, John, you've got to see The Wages of Fear." He kept on at me for years, and eventually when the NFT, the BFI brochure came through for what was coming up at the NFT, there was The Wages of Fear on the big screen. So that was how I first saw The Wages of Fear. I thought immediately it was a terrific film. Now, the first hour of this, hardly anything happens. It's a bit like The Deer Hunter in that regard. You're just getting used to the characters, who they are, what they're really about, but you don't get any backstory. You don't know anything about them. I like that about this film, and so when the stress starts, you're right on the edge of your seat for the next hour and a half until the film finishes. My wife spent the film with her hand over her mouth, and even though she'd seen it before, it still had that effect on her. A brilliant film. It's been taken from the original 35mm nitrate negative. That is going to tell you everything you need to know about how good the black and white photography looks on this 4K disc. It's an old film, so 1:37:1 aspect ratio. Sound is mono on this, it's 2.0 stereo, but if you've got a system correctly set up, that'll pump everything straight through the center channel at the front, and the sound is good, the picture's great. It's a great looking film, highly suspenseful film, much imitated, I could say. Well, not maybe much imitated, but William Friedkin did something he claims was not a remake, but however you look at it, this is a remake of The Wages of Fear. The end credits even denote that, honouring Clouzot and a few other things in there, and actually stating it's based on the book The Wages of Fear, which is La Sellerie de la Peur, or something in French. Alain in the comments will be able to confirm if I've got that right. So this is a reworking, a remake, but it's got an opening on it to tell you where the lead characters come from, the four chaps that we follow through the jungle driving these trucks with explosives on them. This is another great film, but if you've seen The Wages of Fear first, this loses a lot of its impact. And I do think The Wages of Fear has got more stress to it than this, but Roy Scheider, everyone in this is very good, as they are in The Wages of Fear. It's colour, it's 1:7:8:1, and it's got a DTS HD 5.1 soundtrack, which is great. So it's got a lot of impact, this, but Wages of Fear came first. And even though a lot of people recommended this one to me, when they told me what it was about, I thought it sounds like The Wages of Fear. And yes, as far as I'm concerned, this is a remake. William Friedkin disagreed with me. Who am I to argue with? William Friedkin, a great director. And the reason this got called Sorcerer rather than The Wages of Fear, I dare say because they didn't want to state that it was a remake, but because his previous film a couple of years before was The Exorcist. So you put a bit of a connection in there, maybe you'll get a bigger audience than you might otherwise have anticipated. Now, another one, this one really did get a lot of people asking me to get the 4K of, but we have some shops around here that do deals on discs that they get in from donations. And Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse came into one store that quite often does a 3 for £1 deal. So this is the Blu-ray of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I think people thought this was a great take on Spider-Man, and I agree with them for about the first hour and 5 minutes, and like so many films thereafter, it goes a bit over the top, but it's not aimed at my sort of age group, it's aimed at a younger market, and in that regard it's probably great for them. It's a cartoon, it's not a live action film, and so I wasn't expecting to like it much at all. But that first hour or so I thought was excellent. It really was Spider-Man, albeit a different type of Spider-Man. Now, 88 films have come to my attention recently thanks to the Amityville Horror, a spectacular release they did of that film. And this is one that John Armando Chelovec Movies trailered in one of his videos. It's an 88 films release called Rouge, which came out a few weeks ago as I'm recording this. And it's a Hong Kong film from Jackie Chan's company. I think he was in partnership with Willie Chan by then. And Golden Harvest, Golden Films, they produced this. So you'll see Jackie Chan down as the producer. This is a romantic ghost story spread across two time periods, in the 1930s and then when this was shot in 1987. There's a 50-year time span between the two, and in the dialogue within this, it's explained to us that one day in the afterlife equates to 50 years on Earth. A married couple have a suicide pact, and one of them, the suicide works, the other is left behind, and so this features a rather lovely looking ghost who comes back to find her lover, and when she comes back to Hong Kong, 50 years has passed and she doesn't recognise the place. It's a rather haunting film, it's a hypnotic film, and you've got to be alert to follow everything in this, but a beautiful film. Don't expect a horror film or an all-action film or anything like that. It's just a beautiful Hong Kong film in some lovely surroundings. And similarly, I know I watched this early last year and I was expecting to feature it in a video back then, but you have to be alert for this one. And when we watched this one, I was not exactly at my most alert, and so one of those rare things where I just wasn't able to focus on the film, so I thought I'm going to have to go back and watch this again. So actually last night I went back and watched this again in order to include it in this sort of roundup of what I've been watching, and I can tell you that Decision to Leave, a Korean film, 2.40 to 1 aspect ratio, 5.1 sound. This is a very good film, but has similarities to Rouge, which, if I didn't say, is a 185 to 1 film with 5.1 sound on it. But this is not a ghost story. It's a detective sort of murder mystery. Not much of a mystery, really. It's more of a, will the two people who love each other ever actually get together, or will it end in tragedy? So it's another very good Far Eastern film, and there's some extras on here that are worth watching. There's one about the special effects where you've just got some of the computer effects, how they overlaid everything to the live action they shot. That tells you a lot without any dialogue needed at all. Maybe that's how to do these sort of extras in the future, so they don't go on for too long. Now, before I get on to another 4K, I don't just restrict our viewing to Blu-rays and 4Ks. Obviously I still watch Laserdisc, and sound on Laserdisc is better than anything usually that's come afterwards, and that's because we were getting the original theatrical soundtracks on them. But another one of the shops around here that had over 1,000 discs within their walls got short notice from the landlord. They were being moved out, their lease was ending, and so we were walking past there. It's quite remote in our town. We were walking past there and they just had loads of things outside with free on them, and of course all the discs that were out there, they didn't have many Blu-rays but mainly DVD, and so we went in to check. They really were letting these go for nothing, and they said everything's got to go within the next few days, otherwise it's all going off to landfill. So we went through every disc. Now we had quite a few of them, or a lot of them we weren't interested in, but we couldn't rescue them all. So we picked out a few. We actually came home over a couple of visits with about 40. One of them, which was a very nice pack of a film I probably haven't seen in more than 45 years, but I remember it as being influenced by Alfred Hitchcock, that charade starring Cary Grant and Audrey Hepburn. So I thought if any of them don't look any good, we'll check them, we'll watch them on the telly, but I put this one on, and the image quality of this is so awful, there was no way we could even attempt to look at it in the cinema. But one of the reasons it's so awful, it's a masked widescreen, it's not an anamorphic 16:9, so it's a 178 to 1 or 185 to 1, and it's just in a box in the middle of the picture, so I had to fire up one of my older DVD players to play it in that in order to fill the full screen of the telly. It looked awful. I think this probably came from a VHS. It really is that bad. So probably the worst DVD quality I've ever seen, but how strange to get that in such a lovely pack. You wouldn't expect it really, would you? But conversely to that, another one we got for free, Morning Glory, starring Rachel McAdams, Harrison Ford and Diane Keaton. This looks great on our telly. I really wish we watched this in a cinema because it looked like Blu-ray quality on our television. And it's a comedy. It's more than a comedy really, it's a bit of a drama comedy, but everyone in this is absolutely brilliant. Harrison Ford in particular, he's Harrison Ford to a T in this. Grumpy up, yeah. But Rachel McAdams, she's always good. I don't think I've ever seen anything that she's starred in or been in that has been bad. The whole story revolves around her. It's based around a breakfast television show that's struggling, and she loses her job where she's expected to be made producer, and so she gets recruited to do the morning show at another channel. It's a wonderful film. I'd never heard of it, and this is a great DVD that I think you could blow up to 10 feet and think you're watching a Blu-ray. However, I've yet to try that in the cinema, so I might eat humble pie when I finally do that. This one, Lion, is not such good image quality. We did watch this in the cinema, but I thought I'd include this because it's such a great film. I'd never heard of it, and I picked it up off the shelf and I thought, this sounds interesting, and Nicole Kidman is in it, and she's not made up to look like a glamorous Nicole Kidman. She plays a different sort of character in this, and it's wonderful. However, this is probably one of the most upsetting films I've ever seen. It starts in India. A little boy goes out with his brother to try and find things at night that they can sell, or even find food to help feed the family. There's no father, just the mother, the sister and the two brothers, and something happens on that night while he's out, and he's less than 4 years old, I think, and doesn't know his surname, doesn't know his mother's full name, and he's out in the middle of nowhere, and he goes to sleep on a train that's in a siding, and he wakes up about 1,000 miles away or something. So, heart-wrenching story. It's based on a true story, based on the book, and I thought this was brilliant. So the last one I'll feature didn't actually come from the freebies, but this was in another one of those shops, and they charge quite a lot for their discs in there. This was £1. But the reason I got this, Chris Rock, I'm rather a fan of Chris Rock, and won't mention the Oscars. When was that? Was it a year or two ago? But that was pretty awful to see. But I was given the trailer to this on 35mm years ago. I don't think anyone knew what it was, what the film was, didn't like the look of it, and so Take What You Want, John, and Down to Earth was in there. So that got put on a reel, and I've watched that so many times to the point I thought, I've got to see this film. Never found it. And then I saw it on the shelves in the shop for £1, so brought that home. We watched it on our telly. It's about 80 minutes long, and it is a riot. I thought it was hilarious. It's a remake or retelling of Heaven Can Wait with Warren Beatty with a twist. I know it's been done several times, but I think this is the best alternative version I've seen, and probably because Chris Rock is just funny. There's no other way to sum him up. He's just funny. Now, another 4K. I picked this up in HMV a while ago. I featured it in a roundup of things I'd purchased recently. Smile, because I thought the sequel's out. If I like Smile, I get the sequel. Now, this was such an intelligent film that my wife and I will usually lean over to ourselves at one point during these modern horror films and say, I hope it doesn't fall to pieces in the last 20 minutes. And I said, I don't think this one will. It's been too intelligent. And because there's a sequel, they surely can't mess it up. Well, it just shows what I know, because they did. The last 20 minutes just became absolutely ridiculous. It was Alec Gillis and Tom Woodruff Jr. were brought in to do the special effects at the end. They're famous for doing the aliens in 4 of the Alien films, including Alien Romulus, which is sat here on the shelves, and so I suppose they'd invested so much in the ending, and for us it just fell apart. It's a usual thing, but you've got to understand, horror films today, it was like when I was a youngster and the Friday the 13th films were around. Adults didn't like them much on the whole, but us kiddies did. We loved it, and so this really, in the end, this went for the sort of youngster market, the teens, 20-somethings, and it just fell apart from me. So sadly, I haven't got really much interest in seeing the sequel. It might actually be better, the sequel. And while I'm on horror movies, this was a Christmas present from my brother, one of them, Relic, an Umbrella release from Australia, and this was another really intelligent horror film, just more of a ghost film really, ghost story, or is it a ghost story? And it really had us drawn in. It's not the best image quality on here, it's a bit muddy, like some of them shot on video are nowadays when it's all in the dark. And again, the last 20 minutes or so, this just fell apart, and up to then it had been so gripping. You were trying to work out what the mystery was, but alas, in the end, he didn't actually care what the mystery was. So it's a common problem with horror films, and it's why I don't really tend to go for them any longer. But this was another one in the 3 for £1 shop. This was just after Christmas. It was evidently someone got it for Christmas. It was brand new. It was still sealed in here. Michael Jackson's This Is It. Now, he died just before the concerts he was going to do at the Millennium Dome in the East End of London. But fortunately, they filmed the rehearsals, and this is it, hence the title. It must have been so disappointing for some of the people we meet in this that got through the auditions and got jobs as dancers to back up Michael Jackson and the band, and the lead guitarist, the girl in particular in this, she's absolutely brilliant, and she didn't get that chance to shine in front of a mass audience. But I presume they were shooting this in preparation of doing either a cinema release or something for television, maybe something for a Blu-ray and a DVD disc release. But so don't expect, if you get this, to see a Michael Jackson concert. It's a bit hit and miss here and there, a bit bitty as it chops from one rehearsal to the next, but you get to hear the great tracks, and the one I particularly like is Thriller. So if you loved that as a youngster and you loved rehearsing all the moves, then you get to, well, you can get to dance along and sing along to This Is It. And now that I've mentioned Thriller and the fact that I rather like that track, another one we got in the 3 for £1, probably the same day as This Is It, is a film that I didn't know, Jennifer Garner starring in 13 Going on 30. Now, this is a reworking. Don't know if it's right to call this a remake, but whatever. It's a retake, a remake, a reworking of the Tom Hanks film Big. And so that probably tells you everything you need to know about this. It's a bit different, but I thought this was a terrific comedy. I think Jennifer Garner's brilliant, and the reason I mention this one now is because there's a brilliant sequence in the middle of it where she's one of the hosts of a big party, a very important party for a firm who she's now working for now that she's suddenly 30, and they play Thriller. She gets them to play Thriller, and she goes up and she does all the dance moves. I thought that was hilarious again, and even if you don't enjoy the rest of the film, if you like Thriller, Michael Jackson's Thriller, I think you'll enjoy that sequence. Now, there's a few here I skipped. People are always asking me, how do I put my films on the shelves, or my discs on the shelves? I say they just go on the shelf in the order to which they've been watched. They're a bit jumbled up at the moment because I'm doing this, but these 4 that I've skipped are actually the Star Wars 4Ks that I've reviewed or included in reviews recently. So that's why they're skipped. But now I'll come back to this one. This one was from CEX, and the reason we got this, my wife picked this up and said, "Here, John, this is a Clint Eastwood film." Good grief, why have I not seen that? So that went in the shopping basket, didn't it? Matt Damon is a psychic. Something happens to him when he's young, and he gets the ability to talk to the afterlife, I suppose. And so it's a coming together of 3 people who've had similar experiences, and their lives are sort of intertwined. They're going to meet up at some stage, and I just thought this was a wonderful film. But it's Clint Eastwood. If he's not the best filmmaker in the world today, he is still one of the best filmmakers in the world, and I've probably said that in reviews of Unforgiven, and I'll repeat it if $1 Million Baby and Gran Torino ever come out on 4K and I get the chance to review those. Another one we got from CEX that same day, Still Alice with Julianne Moore. When this came out, I thought, I want to see that, but do I really want to see it? I know it's going to be upsetting. She's brilliant in this. What a film. It's a downer, there's no doubt about that, but it's just a wonderful film, and there's not really anything more I need to say about that. HMV, they recently had another of their 2 for £15 premium collections, and so one of them we came back with was running on empty, and it's a 185:1. It's mono sound, if I can remember correctly, so you'd think there's not much really to recommend this, but you put this on the big screen, this looks like a 35mm film. It's got all that sort of grindhouse to it, if you like. It has been cleaned up, but it's just got that sort of look of a film, and we both thoroughly enjoyed this. The other one we got that day we haven't watched yet. It just shows how behind we are. Excalibur. So, believe it or not, that's one I've always managed to somehow accidentally avoid. So that was why that one went into the shopping basket. Now, another Christmas present from my brother. Did rather well this year. So the one we'd seen the trailer for, The Duke, and both said, we've got to see that, then promptly forgot about it, and it turned up just before Christmas. It's a comedy. I think it's set in 1962, might be 1961. It's based on a true story about the stealing of a painting from the National Gallery, or the National Portrait Gallery. Anyway, that I think is a great British comedy. So the last one I'm going to talk about, and the reason I got this, is actually the Blu-ray of ABBA the Movie, which was in CEX. This was £15, and at first I thought, I'm not paying that, and then I thought, hold on a minute, Susie loves ABBA, she always has, it's my wife, it's £15, where else am I ever going to see this on Blu-ray? I've been given the 35mm scope trailer probably 25 years ago by my boss, my colleague Keith Wilton, and I don't think he was interested in it, but he knew Susie loved ABBA. And at the time, ABBA were practically nowhere. There was no chance of them ever getting a reunion or anything. And so to have the 35mm trailer of this, I thought that would show us the film, what it should really look like, because up to that point, we'd only seen the VHS, which my parents got for Susie when we first got married. So that was a long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. However, this is panned and scanned. The sound isn't brilliant, and it's not good picture quality anyway. I think at the most with a pan and scan of a 2.40:1, which is what this is, you only get at the most 48% of the image. So it's never really the best way to look at a film. This one, seeing this as it was, it is as good as seeing the 35mm trailer. This looks like the 35mm trailer. It's those concert sequences, and this follows ABBA on a tour around Australia in 1977. They were just going to go and shoot the concerts for their own records and maybe do something with it afterwards, but someone had the idea of turning it into a proper film, and so they came up with this sort of daft script. But because I'd seen it so often on the VHS, and I'd rather got to appreciate it, we'd watched that trailer so many times. I've actually got the same trailer on Super 8, and so we've watched it a lot over the years, so you get an impression of what it might be like. So by the time we watched this to see it properly for the first time, we both thoroughly enjoyed it. And those concert sequences, it's like you're there at an ABBA concert just before I think they met their height. But it's a rare thing to ever meet anyone who actually saw ABBA live. But someone's sitting here waiting to hand me something. Thank you, Susie. Actually went to see ABBA in 1979 on the Voulez-Vous tour. So this is the programme from ABBA when they were at Wembley Stadium. So I'll probably give you a closer cutaway look at this. But you see these things being advertised for sale on the internet. This is the original ticket which her brother had laminated for her, so it still looks just the way it did the day she went. And so one of the few bands I didn't see back in the day was ABBA, and I regret that. But my wife did, and so that's some special memories she's got there. So I've been buying her plenty of things over the years to do with ABBA. And possibly the most impressive, many of you will probably remember when ABBA Gold came out as a CD. Well, these are the ABBA Gold Laserdiscs, and I'll take one of these out to show you, because I tell a lot of people about these, because Laserdiscs are silver. Well, this one isn't. Well, these two aren't. The second one, More ABBA Gold, is just single-sided. It runs about an hour, but this one is double-sided, runs about an hour and 10 minutes, and as you can see, it's gold. So this is just like having a gold disc on your wall, and you could put this in a frame on your wall, and everyone would think you'd achieved a gold disc at some point, or you got one of ABBA's gold discs. They obviously got when they were, well, they're still getting them today, aren't they, as it turns out. And their last album, ABBA Voyage, they put out a few years ago. I think that's probably the best ABBA album that I've heard, in my opinion. But what got me into them was when I heard Voulez-Vous. I thought that was wonderful. So I got into ABBA. So when I got together with my wifey, she was just at the other end of town when she went to see ABBA at Wembley Stadium. She didn't invite me because we didn't know each other, but I've been making up for that ever since. And whenever these sort of things turn up, I actually got this from Stereo Regent Street. I know a lot of us used to get our Laserdiscs in there in London, but that's where I got these from, and this is probably the most special ABBA thing I ever got her, until perhaps this ABBA the Movie Blu-ray, which we had such a great time with. And if you like 1970s and 1980s pop or bands, then if you can track down a copy of this, then it's well worth looking for. I did have a suspicion someone had re-released it recently, but this isn't it. This was a 2007 Blu-ray, and it's just like looking at that 35mm trailer. It really is that good, but maybe it wouldn't look as good on a telly because it's got that film-like look to it, so it's just made for projection. But anyway, I think that was all I was going to go through today. I don't know what I'm going to be reviewing next. I think I need a visit to HMV in order to decide, but maybe I'll get something older, something that we all really like. I mean, I would like to have a look at the 4K of Die Hard, but I've had that on Super 8 for so long. It's going to be another of those films I'll get on 4K, and I'll never actually watch it on 4K because I've got the film print. But something like that. I rather fancy doing something classic from the 1980s or the 1990s. We'll see. Anyway, if you haven't subscribed already, please do so. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And until the next video, bye-bye for now.